we're talking about people dying in dumpsters.
We're following breaking news out of Ontario. The city of Belleville has declared a state of emergency.
We lost 4 people in 40 days to life on the streets.
I thought you were dead. I thought you were dead.
It was an animal tranquilizer and it was killing us all.
Chaos, destruction, and lack of law and order.
The city is dealing with an overdose crisis.
Last Saturday, I had to call 911.
Okay, go find an address now.
Because someone was ODing out back.
The mayor says that the city's emergency services and healthcare system are close to a breaking point.
I'm walking by people smoking fentanyl every day, and it's just nonchalant. People nodding off, nearing death, and it's just another stroll in the park.
How did a small town in Ontario make national headlines? My producer Ryan and I, we wanted to know, and so we drove to Belleville to meet up with the people witnessing it firsthand.
Like in November, it was very much a similar situation with a lot more people going down than there ever was now.
We just got to Belleville, and the mayor is about to have a press conference where we're hoping to find out the latest on the emergency situation in this city. Police say they've intercepted some drugs.
The majority of those drugs were coming from the GTA.
Belleville's mayor wants to open a new center,
but we need a lot more money.
He wants residents to help pay for it, and that's adding to their frustrations. It's aimed at the people running the center.
I interviewed 90 people up and down the street. 89 of them were so frustrated and angry because you are allowing that disaster to happen outside the church, okay?
How can we keep our businesses running?
You know, like, and that good question's been going on for 2 years. That's not acceptable anymore.
This is Belleville, Ontario, in a state of emergency, and this is the epicenter of the overdose crisis. A couple weeks ago on this block, in the span of about an hour, a bunch of people started to collapse. It's a city at a breaking point, and we wanted to find out how it got so bad. That's Jennifer Cormier, JJ. She agrees to show us around. She's the head of the John Howard Society, runs the drop-in center. She's taking care of a lot of people.
You okay? Take a couple deep breaths for me, okay? Okay. Wayne, his lips were blue earlier, okay?
So when the drop-in initially was opened, it was for 15 individuals who needed to be off the street because of the provincial rules, and that's grown now to 200. So we see about an average of 108 to 115 unique individuals every day.
The city says the solution is moving all of this across town to Alhambra Square, run services 24 hours a day, and boost JJ's staffing. But that plan is still about a year away, and some residents, they want this, all of it, gone.
If we were to close up the drop-in today and say we're going to wait until 1 Alhambra is open,
8 months to a year down the road from what the mayor was saying.
Right, 8 months to a year, these individuals are going to end up in people's backyards.
We get the sense that there's nowhere else to go.
I've been homeless for 6 years, and before these guys opened, we had nothing. Nowhere to go, and get banned from everywhere, and once it's open, it's just like home. Like, during the day, it keeps us warm and safe.
Last couple of weeks have been a wake-up call. People tell us the violence, it's gotten worse. They've had to hire security guards.
I'm prepared for my job. I know that I'm going to potentially run into an overdose or two, but to have 6 in less than 5 minutes was frightening, and they weren't responsive, and it was really overwhelming.
We keep hearing the drugs are changing. Animal tranquilizers, benzodiazepines. They're not the drugs that people were used to. People are just seeing it because it's here on the streets, but you've been living it for much longer. How do you understand what's happening right now?
This started 4 years ago. This didn't start recently for any of us. This has backfired and bit every single one of us. Everybody we love and know is dead.
Not everybody is a statistic. We are not pieces of garbage. We are a part of the community. It is us that we are the ones that are being killed off by this drug.
A month and a half ago, I overdosed. And between the staff here and a couple of the family big brothers here, the CPR that they had to do was extensive because of the trank. It absolutely put me out to the point that they didn't know what to do. So in order to save me, it not only took 2 different Narcan injections and a nasal, it took extensive CPR.
Her lips were purple, her cheeks were purple, her nose was purple. I flipped her over, and I thought you were dead.
I thought you were dead. And it takes longer to bring them back because it's a different drug. So she died like 3 times.
Everyone we talked to here told us they need a safe place to call home. But they also tell us if they can't kick fentanyl first, they're not going to be able to keep their place.
You're talking about the cost of housing is just out of this world. And then you're talking about all those other systems that have broken down and there's no resources. So where do they go for help and how do they get it?
We're family. We're family here. You know, hardest part for me every day is shutting that door.
So if this is your family and your family's on the streets, when you do get housing, how difficult is it to move on? Because in a sense, it's like, from what you've been telling me...
I'm leaving them here to die.
Housing. It's supposed to be the solution, but for the people who live on the streets, they see that as an impossible choice between shelter and the family that they've come to know on the streets. But for the people who live and work downtown, they say it's a situation that just can't go on.
Okay, so this is our bistro. Okay. We've been here for 16 years.
Remember the residents who were angry with JJ and the state of Bridge Street? We wanted to understand where that frustration was coming from.
Part of our challenges are we have just like a little community tip pot. People will come in, they will steal the money. This particular individual that I have on video, she's been in here 5 times. She goes right over to my customers, goes into their pockets and takes their money. And we don't have the budget to hire extra people to stop that. Last Saturday, I had to call 911 at 5:30 because someone was ODing out back. And, you know, I have compassion for that, but it's very challenging when you're trying to run a business. Over to the right here used to be our stairs. We had a man and a wife living there, and they were there for 2 weeks. They just literally wouldn't leave because I had started giving them food. There's no one in this community that doesn't want to help, but it's at a level that it's so difficult and we are enabling it.
We met a lot of other people downtown. They wanted us to know what's been happening outside their doors. And then they showed us this.
Okay, go find an address now. No, I've already called somebody. I'm on the phone with them now.
What's been the impact on this town from where you're staying?
Chaos, destruction, and lack of law and order. Smashed windows, people defecating, you can say homeless, but I think a lot of that is addiction problems. Urinating anywhere, casting garbage everywhere, just a lack of respect for a community that feeds them.
What seems to be happening here that's really affecting all of us is the drug culture and the drug dealing and the theft that happens with that. I personally feel that the one program that we have up the street is kind of broken because it's really overflowing down into the businesses and it's really affecting their livelihood.
My worry is that if it doesn't change for the better, people are really going to burn out and our community will suffer.
Okay, but let's take a step back here for a second, because to be clear, this issue is really concentrated on a few blocks of downtown. In a small city of about 50,000 people, that can feel like a lot, but not everyone is at the end of their rope, and people went out of their way to tell us that.
For me, the general feeling is a lot of sympathy, really. I mean, this is part of our community. These are people that are loved ones to lots of, friends and family, other employees, other businesses that we have. These are all, known people, and I don't feel that we're really doing enough.
Back on Bridge Street, some people tell us this is their hometown, and they've lost a lot of people. That last round of overdoses, it took Sarah's husband, Channing. They found him in a dumpster.
In 4 years, this started with my dad and ended with my husband. My mother died 2 weeks before him, fentanyl overdose, at 60 years old. Channing was only 38. He just turned 38.
That's a thread we keep hearing. Loss and a lack of support.
Me, myself, I always wanted to be a family man. I had that dream, and we were introduced to certain drugs, and it went to hell. For me to get clean and stay clean, I need a stable home. Being out here, it's just massive depression all the time. You get stuck in that rut, and you finally give up. I've pretty much given up.
There has to be housing that's affordable to begin with. and supported. And so I think until that happens, you're just creating a revolving door.
This is the epitome of a revolving door. I talk to people about the bail system and they go, well, what do you mean they let hardcore drug dealers out that have guns on them?
Constable Aaron Crawford. We've been wanting to talk to him since we got here, and just before we need to head back, he gets the green light to go on camera. How do you describe what's happening here right now in Belleville?
I would say that this is the crux of poor policy and poor decision all come to a head all at the same time. You have a legal system that's incredibly soft on crime and on criminals. You have a mental health system that's, quite frankly, failing tax-paying and non-tax-paying citizens here in Ontario. And things are kind of at their breaking point. This is the result. You have people that are unmedicated, unwell, and they're medicating themselves with drugs on the street. Fentanyl, they're using fentanyl because they don't want to feel anymore. They're defeated.
He tells us he's been watching things go from bad to worse, knows most people by name, either because he's tried to save them or because he's arrested them over and over again.
I mean, if I charge someone for theft or mischief, they go to the courthouse, they get released because they're trying to fund their addiction. If I take them to the hospital, they don't get held because they're in a drug-induced psychosis. It just seems that there's just nowhere for these people to go.
We ask him about those concerns that the residents brought up, about the thefts, the break-ins, the vandalism.
It's either I bring them to court, get them charged or charge them, and they're not held accountable for the criminal act that they're doing. And again, I think it's because of out of reasons of compassion. But then they're also not being institutionalized. I could introduce you to a couple people probably at 60 Bridge who would ramble on and make no sense, would not be able to have a full-fledged conversation like you or I are having right now. And that's because of their mental health issues. And for me not to be able to bring someone to a place that can actually look after that person, because right now that type of a person cannot look after themselves and they are being left on the street. That is frustrating.
Picking up the same people for the same crimes day after day. He says he tries to get them help instead of laying charges, but there is no help anywhere. So after a few arrests,
eventually it comes to a head where we're charging people for the crimes that they're committing. Smashing windows, thefts, all the things that probably you're hearing are affecting the downtown area. And we're sending them to the courts, and the courts are essentially saying this person may be doing these things because they're in the midst of a mental health crisis. And that would bring us to our bail system. So our bail system, people are getting released left, right, and center for the same crimes over and over and over again.
Has the system failed you, your city?
I think that the system's failed a lot of communities, not just Belleville. Just look at the last 2 weeks. I mean, we're talking about people dying in dumpsters. We're talking about people that are dying on the front of a sidewalk that they've been released to. I just shake my head at people who, I just shake my head and kind of go, why, how do the people that are in charge not see that they're the ones causing some of this?
So we head back to Bridge Street, right behind the church. We're starting to see this building in a whole new light. Everyone's concerned. No one's got an answer.
My hope is that we, as a community, can collectively come together and say, okay, what can we do that works for everyone? And, you know, I understand, I'm a mother, I have a child. I understand that mindset of not necessarily wanting your child to see this. But the harsh reality is this is real. It's real. These people are real. And this isn't just a Belleville issue. This is countrywide. We are seeing it everywhere, the states everywhere. And, you know, so there's more to it than just a church.
Before we leave town, we have to see the site of this new center. And this is it. Underfunded and a long ways away from being of any help. It's been the end of a full 2 days here in Belleville, and we've spoken to everyone who would speak to us. Everyone's got a different idea of what a solution looks like, but like this one, they're all long-term. The one thing that everyone seems to agree on is that the systems that were supposed to be in place to prevent this from happening, they failed, and it's the people who live here who are paying the price.